everyone. This is Faith at Faith and Books. How are you doing? It is Monday, May 27th. It's Memorial Day weekend in the USA, so this is a day off for everyone. And we had a big weekend because my daughter got married. And so we've been planning this for a year, I guess. I didn't really do the planning. She did it, and her now husband. But it was a really beautiful wedding, and I hope they're very happy and hope they have a wonderful honeymoon. So anyway, I'm glad it's over. I'm decompressing. I'm so glad that they picked a holiday weekend where on this we get an extra day to sort of recuperate. But anyway, it was really wonderful. So I thought I would catch up on what I've read so far in May, what I'm currently reading, and my June plans. And I'm also going to work on creating that Theology Discord. And then I will probably post about that later this week. But right now this is a catch up. So, let's see, in May, what did I read? The first thing I finished in May, on May 1st, was Semper Fidelis by Ruth Downie. It is the number 5 book in her series, Medicus. That was left over from There's No Place Like Rome. It was good. It's this kind of a cozy mystery series. Maybe cozy is too strong a word. Less than cozy, but not, still a good mystery. And I've been enjoying them immensely. This one, though, probably wasn't my favorite. I thought it was uneven, and it kind of had a flat ending, I thought. So, but it was okay. I'm glad I read it. And there's more in the series, and I would like to continue on with them, though right now I'm a little burnt out on Roman stuff. So I'm going to take a little break. And so that was the first thing I finished in May. And then on May 6th, I finished Thursday, the Rabbi Walked Out. That was for Jewish American Heritage Month because my great-great-grandfather was Samuel Gompers, and who, if you're not familiar, he was a labor leader, and he was a Jewish immigrant. And my husband is Jewish American, so I wanted to honor that Jewish American heritage. So, and I had conveniently already downloaded on my I don't have my Kindle with me, so I can't show you, but I had downloaded on my Kindle. It's also a sort of cozy mystery. It was a series that was really popular, I think, in the 70s. It was always a day of the week, and then the rabbi did something. So this was Thursday, the Rabbi Walked Out. And the rabbi is Rabbi David Small, and he has a small conservative congregation in a small town outside of Boston, and he's a very interesting character. It's kind of understated. He's not really that involved until the end when he puts all the clues together. But it was just interesting getting a glimpse into sort of the Jewish world of the synagogue. And sort of anyone who's ever had to work in a group like that knows the sort of political maneuverings that are going on between the people involved, and also into the 70s, because Women's Lib plays a little bit of a role in this, and it was kind of neat seeing the reactions to it at the time. And even in the 70s, there's a mention of how certain country clubs still didn't include Jews, and that sort of thing. So it was a nice little time capsule of the 70s, like issues in the 70s. I enjoyed it very much. I had read one of the books in the series many, many, many years ago. Don't even remember which one, but they are a fun mystery series. And after he finishes the 7 days of the week, the author, whose name is Harry Kemelman, something like that, he continues on with other sort of themes, like the week the rabbi did something, or the whatever. So there's more than just 7 in this series. All right, so that was the 6. And then I had trouble getting started. I DNF'd three books. I DNF'd. I tried to read North Woods, which is a current book that I saw on Booktube people raving about. And so I think I paid full price or something on my Kindle, but I thought it was awful. Like I couldn't even get started in it. It read like a torrid adolescent romance. Like the first few pages. I had that song. Who did that song? Running just as fast as we can, holding on to one another's hand. I mean, it was like that level. So anyway, I was turned off by it. Maybe it gets better. Maybe you read it and you think it's a good book, but I just couldn't even get a foot in the door with the book. And then I tried to read The Harvester by Jean Stratton Porter, and I like her books. I've read was it Girl of the Limberlost and Laddie, and I think I've read something else, Freckles or something. But this had such a weird beginning. It was this man talking to his dog, like his dog is like a soulmate. And then he does some weird superstitious thing, and then he kicks the dog because the dog had the wrong, I don't know, the whole thing was weird. Like, so that I DNF'd that. And then I decided I'd try Georgette Hare's The Black Moth because I thought I hadn't read it, I think this was the very first book that she wrote. And I started to read it, and I realized I had already read it, so I just didn't feel like doing a reread. So finally I settled on, and I'm still reading, a collection of Dorothy L. Sayers short stories. It's called In the Teeth of the Evidence, and they're excellent. I'm really enjoying them. I think I'm like 70% through. Some of them include Lord Peter Wimsey, but a lot don't. So really, she was a good short story writer, very clever. So I'm enjoying that right now. And then I read I could take this off, I'm getting hot. Then I read two big books. These were the big honkers. I did a buddy read with Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading, who is an excellent buddy reader, by the way. We did In This House of Brede by Rumer Godden. I love Rumer Godden's writing style. There's something so clear and yet profound and nuanced, and it just flows. It just feels very natural, and you just get immersed in the world. I don't know, she just has had an incredible writing ability. And this is about, we're following a woman named Philippa Talbot, and she is this very successful businesswoman in a time when women weren't really that successful in business. And so she's really well respected and, in a position of authority and esteem, but she gives it all up to go into the convent. And you kind of find out why as the story unfolds very slowly. But it's not just about her, because there's a whole cast of characters, all these different nuns that are in the monastery. We learn about a lot of them and their lives. And even the ones that are minor characters, they sort of kind of weave in and out. So you get a sense of this big community of women. And I think it's a little bit idealized. And you learn a lot about what cloistered life is like. So it's austere, and at the same time it's very rich. It's very ordered. And yet there's they work hard. But there's a lot of beauty in it as well. And there's a real, they're really kind to each other. They really want to support each other and sanctify each other. And they have their flaws. They're struggling, as is Philippa. But anyway, it's very, very interesting. And one of the more interesting aspects of it is that it was written right as Vatican II was being implemented. And Vatican II had a very disastrous effect on the women's religious, because, it came out in 1969. Or at least Loyola, when did it come out? No, Loyola did this 2005. I guess it was 1969. So women just fled the religious life after Vatican II, and it's just starting back up again, but nowhere near previous levels, because there was a lot of corruption, and there was a lot of just the new ideas and the changes that people didn't know how to handle, and just the very extremely poor implementation of Vatican II. So we're still reeling from all that. But it was really, it was a good book. There's a reason why it's considered her, what do I want to say, magnus opus. It's, and she had converted to Catholicism at age 60. So I guess she wrote this afterwards, or I'm not quite sure the timeline. She had written other books about nuns too. She wrote Black Narcissus, which I read last year, and she wrote another one too, 10 for Sorrow, 5 for Joy, or is it 5 for Sorrow, 10 for Joy? I can't remember. I think that's also about nuns. Anyway, I want to read all of Rumer Godden's books, and I just noticed that I didn't even realize I had owned it, that I have Thursday's Child or something by her up in it's an old paperback. I just discovered it. So somehow it wound up on my shelf. So I want to read more Rumer Godden. It was a really, really enjoyable. I really enjoyed reading it with Kelly. So that was a good thing. And it reads much faster. I mean, I think it only took us like 2.5 weeks to read, something like that, 638 pages. It was a good book. I'm really glad I read it. The other big honker that I read, and I started this the day after Easter, I think, was Introduction to Christianity by Pope Benedict. This was a reread for me. I had read it last year, really struggled through. It took me 6 months. I decided I was going to try to read it in the 50 days of Pentecost. I did not quite make it. I went over 4 days. I got to drink my coffee here. This is so profound. It's kind of a misnomer. It's not an introduction to Christianity. It's really sort of a theological investigation of the creed, how the creed developed. So it developed out of the baptismal rite from the early church, and then then they realized they needed a statement of faith. So then it became the creed, and they, various councils worked on the wording of it. And he goes through both the Nicene and whatever the other one's called, just flew out of my head. Nicene Creed and what's the other one? Anyway, the Apostles' Creed, yeah. It's very profound. It starts with, why we believe in God, because the first words are I believe, credo. And then what do we mean by God? He goes all into the Trinity, and just through all the different statements that are made in the creed. This is, I cannot articulate how much is in this book. It's very hard for me to articulate. I feel like I'm barely grasping a lot of it. It's so deep. I took so many notes. As I read, I took notes, trying to remember, and I do think it helped me. But what I got out of this, just briefly, which is an impossibility to be brief about this book, is that, we believe in God because we don't think something can come from nothing. That's not in our experience as humans. And we know that, it's a scientific thing too. That something where there's absolutely nothing that exists, it cannot produce something. And so we believe in God, but existence itself demands relationship. You can't exist in a vacuum. If you exist, you came from somewhere. And so we're always in relationship. And God, in the Christian view, is existence itself. God is the force that holds existence in being. He is being. He is I am, that I am. And so he is existence. Existence means there must be relationships. You must come from something. You must have to relate to other things. And just to really summarize, the highest plane of relationship is love. And so God is both what holds things in existence and is perfect love. And so we come from God, and we are going, and we are made for God. So we come from something and we are for something. And it's just very, very beautiful how he goes through how Christ, exemplifies that idea. That we are for. We are the preposition for Christians is for. We live for something, and it's so profound. It's really hard to, like I said, I can't really articulate it, but it's just so beautiful. Such a very deep joy at the bottom of it all, and it's a very challenging read. I found it very challenging, but I'm glad I read it, and I reread it too, because there's something about theology that just, it really feeds me, because it makes me think more deeply about things. It makes me feel more grateful. It makes me more aware of God's presence. It's just such a challenge, and it just enriches my life so much. So I really enjoyed. That's why I want to start the Theology book club. But this was a great read, and I'm glad I did it. So then what was after that? What did I finish after that? I finished this. Did I write down when I finished? Oh, I finished this on the 24th. I finished In This House of Brede on the 22nd. And then I started listening to an audiobook, The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. I wanted to do that because this summer I really want to go through my house and declutter and get rid of a lot of stuff and put things in place. I have about 8 weeks to do that. So, I'm not going to get it all done because this is a big house and we've lived here a long time and there's a lot to do. But I want to do a good chunk. I really want to get something done. So I thought this book would inspire me. This book is a very slight book, but it's charming. The woman is, what's her name? I don't have it with me. Marguerite something or another. She's Swedish. She coyly says that she's somewhere between the age of 80 and 100. And she's basically giving you the wisdom that she's acquired over a long life, where she had to take care of people's things after they passed away. Her parents, her mother-in-law, her husband. And she's getting ready to die as she's getting older. And so it's like half memoir, half practical tips about how you can, and it's not only for death cleaning, but just how to keep your life in order, get your priorities straight and keep your life in order so that it's less stressful and you can meet the next challenge that comes along. So it was a very, it wasn't much of a book, but it's kind of cool that she wrote it at the end of her life, and I don't know if she's still alive or not. It came out a couple of years ago, or maybe longer. But anyway, I enjoyed it as a audiobook. Juliet Stevenson read it, so it was well read. All right, so that is what's happened so far that I finished in May. So currently reading. So in the first week of May, I read a lot of Emily Dickinson, and then I kind of put her down and forgot about her. So this last week of May, because we got 6 days left, I think. Is that right? No, if today's the 27th, that couldn't be right. Well, in this remaining week here, I'm going to read some more Emily Dickinson. And this week, I really want to focus on this one, Orphans of Empire. This is for the Faded Pages book club that Sean Standfast has. And I keep starting it and then not getting very far. And the wedding really got in the way of reading the last few days. But this I want to finish this week. So it's not that long. It looks thicker than it actually is. But it sounds really interesting. I'm interested in the subject matter. Yeah, a lot of this back here isn't actual book. Epilogue. So where does the epilogue end? 283. So anyway, and there's pictures in it. It's kind of spaced line. So it's not as much text as you would think. But it sounds really interesting. It's about 18th century London was teeming with humanity, and poverty was never far from politeness. Legend has it that on his daily commute through this thronging metropolis, Captain Thomas Coram witnessed one of the city's most shocking sights. The widespread abandonment of infant corpses by the roadside. Anyway, Orphans of Empire tells the story of what happened to some of the thousands of children who were raised at the London Foundling Hospital, Coram's brainchild, which opened in 1741. So this actually works for Historathon too, because I mean it goes into the 1800s, past whatever the date is for the next. I know they want to include Jane Austen July in the next 3 quarters, but I mean the next 3 months of the 3rd quarter of Historathon. Anyway, but this would work too. At least it starts in the right time period. So I'm going to read that, and this is what I hope to finish this week. And then I'm also doing a buddy read of the letters of Vincent van Gogh, and I'm on page 51, so I'm not very far in, but I hope to also read a lot of this week, though this is definitely going to go into June, and we have, I'm reading it with 3 other people. But so far, delightful. Van Gogh he's a young man, he's very religious, but he's already in love with art and has a wonderful eye. And he loves his brother Theo so much, who he's writing to. So it's really charming. It's really charming. And I keep stopping to look up the painters that he said, he'll say, oh, I got a reproduction of this painter's, and I have it up on my wall, and I've never heard of this particular painter, and so I go on a Google hunt to try and find it. So it's very interesting. This is going to be a really good read. I'm glad now I can really focus on it. All right, so that's that. Oh, already 21 minutes in. Okay, I'm going to do a really quick June TBR. My poet for June is Edna St. Vincent Millay. This is an old book. That was my Aunt Jackie. She got it Christmas 1944. So that's next month's poet. I want to participate in June on the Range. I'm excited about that because last summer we went to Montana. We went to Glacier National Park, and on the way back on our home journey, I downloaded a book by Ivan Doig. It was his memoir, and it was so good. I really enjoyed his writing and just the whole thing. I loved it. So this is the first book in a trilogy, also set in Montana. This will also work for the state, trying to read a book from each of the states. I've only, so far, since I've started that, I've only read a book. It's set in, one was in Massachusetts, one was in Maine. So I have 2 down. This will be the 3rd. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this for June on the Range. I've never participated in that before, and I think that will be fun. And then this is also for Historathon and my own poetry reading goals. I want to read about the life of Alfred the Great, and because I'm preparing myself to read, what's it called now? I can't remember the name of the poem, but G.K. Chesterton wrote this epic poem about Alfred the Great, but I don't know very much about him. So I want to read about Alfred the Great, so I'm going to read at least some of this book. It's kind of a collection of different sources about him for Historathon. So that's also on the table. And then I'm going to do a buddy read again with Peg from the History Shelf and Christy Lewis of Dostoevsky in Space. We read Notes from the Underground back in February, maybe. And now we're going to read, we all have this edition, and it also includes The Gambler. So in June, we are going to read The Gambler by Dostoevsky, and it's a novella, and I'm looking forward to that. I think Christy Lewis might have already read it. I'm not sure, but anyway, I have not, so I'm looking forward to that. And then I kept wanting to get more Anthony Trollope in. I read Rachel Ray at the beginning of this year, and then I reread The Warden for the Faded Pages Book Club. But I wanted to read, up there somewhere on the shelves, or my mother's collection of Anthony Trollope books, and I wanted to read at least 5. My goal was to read 5 this year, and it's June. So I have to really start focusing on Anthony Trollope. So I think in June, I'm going to try to pick this up. Anthony Trollope's, this is also 2 novellas, Nina Balatka and Linda Tressel. And they're combined into this. And I'm going to try and get these read. And we'll see what I think of them. And then last but definitely not least is the Theology Book Club. June 20th, we're going to start reading Paul's epistles. And then we're also going to start reading, this is starting in June, the beginning of June. We're going to start reading The Lord by Romano Guardini. And it just so happens that there are 7 parts of this book, and we have 7 months starting in June through December. So my goal is to read a part each month. So I'm going to reread the stuff that I read earlier this year, and then put the book down, didn't pick it up again. But you can see I already wrote down. So I'm going to read part 1, the beginning, in June, part 2, message and promise, in July, etc. So, yeah. So, all right, I'm going to stop there. I think I covered everything. Oh, the only other thing I want to mention is I also want to participate in the Summer of Sport. And on my Kindle, after I finish the Dorothy Sayers book, I'm going to start a biography of Babe Ruth. So, all right, so I think that's it, except more is coming about the Theology Book Club, and in June we are going to read the first part of The Lord, and we're going to start reading Paul's epistles. So, all right, and so I'm going to get started on that today, setting up the Discord and all that good stuff, and I'll report back later. All right, I hope you are all doing well and having, a good weekend if you're in the U.S., or even if you aren't. It's not the weekend anymore, I guess, for you. Anyway, happy reading. Take care.